Welcome to the Brave Technologist. I know that you're speaking at the AI Summit. What is the core message you hope to leave the audience with?
Thanks so much for having me. Yes, I am speaking on a panel on AI adoption later today. I think the main goal I have as a professor and advisor is to highlight the risks, because I think there's obviously been a huge push towards AI investment, and we see that here at the AI Summit. There's so many new companies. But I feel that there should be focus on what the challenges might be. Are we thinking about, the risks, including sustainability, the effect on unemployment, and in this AI transition? I think that's sort of my main hope. It's not about being a downer, it's about preparing people so that they can ultimately be more productive and ideally maximize on the opportunity.
That's great. I think it's important because a lot of the risks are kind of hyperbolic and people are very doom and gloom with like, okay, is this going to replace our jobs or whatever? What would you see as the most misunderstood risk that people have or understated one with regards to AI deployment?
Yeah, great question. I think what concerns me most is the fact that we're hearing a lot about how AI will take away jobs, and I think that is adding to our collective anxiety. And at NYU, we've created this AI anxiety index. It's a prototype, it's only 10 countries so far, but it looks like in countries like the US, UK, France, there's a lot more anxiety about how AI will take away jobs. So I think there is a need to be more responsible in terms of tech leaders, to be more responsible about the rhetoric they use. It's concerning if a big tech leader says, oh, in a couple of years you won't need to work, so what do we do? So I think there is definitely a need to focus in on that aspect. I also think that we've also seen studies, including from MIT, where it's pretty clear that there's no sufficient return on investment on AI adoption. So maybe we shouldn't be rushing to adopt when we still have to figure out how this plays out. And obviously it is very challenging because AI itself is evolving as we speak. What we talk about here at the AI Summit may be less relevant a week from now or a month from now. So I think that is a significant challenge.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are kind of using a lot of this hyperbole too as an excuse to trim the company sizes down. But you're leading this global risk prediction project at NYU. Is there a real world risk event you've analyzed with your students that's revealed something surprising about where the world is heading?
Yes, so thanks so much. I've been leading this project for 10 years with my grad students at NYU and crowdsourced consultancy Wikistrat. So every year we hope to predict what could be next in the coming year, and now we've been thinking more towards 2030. I think what has come up in the last 2 years has definitely been AI risks, again relating to the impact on the job market and really our mental health, because it is concerning when a lot of young people in particular are wondering, are we going to be able to get a job? Is there a job for our age group when we get out of college? Because there's a study from Stanford that suggests early career roles in certain industries are being wiped out already at this stage, at least in the US. I think there's also been indication in our research in the last 2 years that AI is impacting mental health. I was shocked when OpenAI data revealed that every week 1 million people are engaging with ChatGPT to talk about their mental health issues, and unfortunately also suicidal elements as well are part of that discussion. So it's not that we can blame the LLM for the fact that there are these suicidal discussions happening, but it is a scary statistic, and I do feel that we need to perhaps put more focus on what are the policy implications of this, what can we do. I think big picture, if I reflect on our research the last couple of years, I think it's pretty clear, especially in the last year, that the world order has shifted. And I think most people would say that, okay, well, everything started just now. The post-Cold War era ended now because of President Trump. But that's not the case. In our research, it's been building for over 10 years. In some of my data indices, it's been building since the 2000s, where we've seen a rise in challenges to US hegemony. And what's interesting is that we've also seen the rise of not just other powers, of course it's a multipolar era, but other types of actors. So you see the tech firm, the tech leader, the activists playing a bigger role in driving global change. So from our perspective, it's becoming more of a polycentric world order. It's not enough to say multipolar, a couple of big powers. Let's face it, a lot of the big powers are terribly burdened at home. youth unemployment is one example, and plus we have major wars that are happening. What's interesting is, again, the rise of these other actors. The tech leaders the tech firms, in a way, are already starting to fill the gap, the leadership gap on the global stage. Personally, I think long-term this will be better for us. It's an era of empowerment as power disperses, but obviously there's a lot of uncertainty and the rules of the game are very unclear. And I think we should be concerned about that. Whatever field we're in, whatever age you are, I think that's something that will be with us the next couple of years.
Are there similar challenges happening in other countries?
That's a good question. I think with respect to AI adoption, if you look at the studies and the stats, I think most countries, most governments have shown they are ready to invest. They are approaching it that way. What I think is interesting is that in terms of the use of AI by the individual or by companies, I think most of the statistics actually indicate that it's not just US and China. You do see that the UAE, Singapore, those two countries in particular are rising faster than one would expect. I think they're punching above their weight, so to speak, on the global stage. I also think that they are showing more effort towards AI diplomacy. In Saudi Arabia as well, they have the Digital Cooperation Organization. I think these three countries in particular seem to be having more constructive dialogue. They're not burdened by big power baggage as US and China might, with all due respect to them. But if you look at some of the broader studies, the IMF has done a lot of global studies, and in particular emphasizes that the impact of AI unemployment will be more in the developed world. 60% will be impacted in the developed world and less so in the emerging markets and in the low-income countries, because the idea is adoption is happening faster here. But I think the interesting statistic to note, and as I said, my AI anxiety index does show that we have more reason to be concerned about AI anxiety here versus in other parts of the world, and I'm not sure our governments are really in tune with that. And my broader concern is that this is going to spill over into unrest and a recurrent legitimacy crisis, and we should be worried about that.
I totally agree. I think, everybody's kind of trying to find their way with this stuff too. All the technology is kind of being brought from top level down, which doesn't tend to happen in the way that it's kind of happening right now. I want to dig in a little bit on this idea that you've warned that AI could create an occupational identity crisis. What does that look like on the ground for everyday people?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So in our research, and I'll piggyback off an idea from this economist at SOAS, the University in London. His name is Guy Standing, and I think over 20 years ago he coined the idea of the precariat class, people who felt left behind by globalization. As we know, globalization isn't perfect. The challenges didn't just start now. And I think that idea of people falling through the cracks of the global economy, I think that narrative began with the pitfalls of globalization, and then we heard it again during the COVID pandemic, when we realized that, okay, this is obviously a major challenge to the global economy. I still remember I was in London at the time, and the Minister of Finance, he said that we have this package to help people through the pandemic, economic package, but many will fall through the cracks. Literally, he said that. So I think that we've already had a history, the last 20 years, of a rise in economic frustration from people around the world, and perhaps that has manifested itself with bursts of protests, inflation, unemployment. And don't forget the 2010s, we had a youth unemployment crisis around the world. I was a Business Week columnist for a few years at that time, and we had a cover story about this youth unemployment bomb. And it wasn't just the Arab Spring region where young people were pushing back and saying opportunities are not there, but it was also in other parts of the world. And I guess my fear is that we've had layers or a growing number of precariat members, this economic class that feels they have no occupational identity. It's been building for a while. And now, in a post-pandemic world, we also have the added layer of AI. That is, for many of us, is going to cause us to question our occupational identity. We have, I'm sure, like me, you have years of experience, and I have, education and books and so forth. But if tomorrow I was told, look, AI has made you redundant at this phase as an aging millennial, I would be pretty worried. I would be pretty worried. I can't just rely on my crypto investments, right? And so forth. And I think that occupational identity crisis, that questioning we will have to do. What is our sense of purpose? What do our children, what do the younger generation do going forward? I think that is really the crux of it, that we're not having enough debate and discussion about it, and obviously we don't know how quickly it will come, which adds to the anxiety.
Yeah, no, I think a couple really good points in there, especially when you've got now, I'm in the idea like aging millennial, right, like generation. I mean, the global financial crisis was huge impact. I think that was kind of like a really big shock to, I mean, after, at least from the financial world, and you saw people's retirements getting, cut in half basically, and then lots of job disruption and all of that. But now you've got like Gen Z that's kind of coming up, and the whole COVID pandemic hit in a different way. But it's almost like if there isn't a better meeting in the middle between the corporate rhetoric and the government, the regulatory side or whatever, there's just going to be a general disillusionment from the millennial class or demographic, and then the Gen Z people that haven't necessarily been hit by it but are way more earlier adopting of the tech side. It's a really interesting kind of set of conditions, and part of me thinks that everybody will progress as we do, but like at the same time, people's faith in these organizations is just going to wane to the point of almost being non-existent at a certain point. I don't know, there's all this disruption happening, right? Like,
I agree with you. I think the concern I have is that we will have a tech clash. I think you'll have people who, I don't know if they'll necessarily just be the younger set, but there will be people who say, I don't want to use AI. I don't need to use your products. I'm going to go in a different direction. And I think that should be a concern for tech companies. I think, and as I alluded to earlier, I do feel tech leaders have to be more responsible in their rhetoric. When the head of Anthropic says this is a bloodbath, the jobs are going. Because prior to the pandemic, we only talked about automation impacting retail, food, transport, and you saw there was a lot of dialogue amongst the tech billionaires that, hey, UBI would be a good option, and it made sense, and I wrote about it too, and I was excited too. But now we have another layer of impact on another group, and different sectors. I mean, it depends who you believe. Supposedly will replace young lawyers, marketing, advertising, education potentially, which is one of my roles in my portfolio career. So I just think our tech leaders need to be held accountable a little bit, that if you're going to say this, then follow through with a suggestion as to what we should do. I think that dialogue isn't happening. There's just such a race by governments to just get the tech leaders the money they need and get the data centers set up and all of that. But the human impact is not sufficiently discussed, and we should be worried. And yeah, that's the reality.
What would the accountability look like from your point of view? It's a hard thing. It's always like, okay, well, like we want people to be more accountable, but it's hard to see what that looks like, right? And I mean, is there a realistic pathway towards global AI governance from your point of view?
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot in different forums. I spoke at the Paris Peace Forum, and was it in October, I think, and also the London AI Summit in the summer. I think the good news is there is an effort by certain countries and certain actors to talk about the desire for regulation. I think in the EU, for instance, they have the AI Act, right, which is enforceable. Then the G7, as we talked about at the Paris Peace Forum, launched the Hiroshima AI reporting framework so that tech companies, tech leaders, and other executives would report how they manage AI risks, and that would be a way to collect data and hopefully help us. But it is not enforceable, it's voluntary. So I think in the current climate, given the way the U.S. position in the world has evolved just in 1 year with President Trump, and frankly it's been building for a while, I don't think it's realistic to have a global AI policy where all of us come together, just like it's unlikely we'll come together on climate. So I think what's more likely is that you have regional efforts that will likely be more enforceable and more localized to what's happening on the ground. I think that is probably the best way forward. Obviously, we have to realize down the road, if AGI is upon us, ASI, a lot of these discussions will become irrelevant because the AI won't need us or listen to us. So that's sort of, I hope, hopefully many decades from now. It's hard to know when AGI and ASI will be upon us, but it's still good to be part of these discussions.
No, super interesting. I mean, just to kind of switch gears a little bit, I know we talked about governance in that side, but what about addressing like actual progress on things, like a lot of sustainability issues or poverty? Like, is there a real near-term example where you think AI could meaningfully advance any of these areas?
Yes, I think, and we talked about AI sustainability, I think, last year as well at the summit. I think everyone is aware that there's an energy problem, there's a water usage problem, and it's not a hidden story. I think the good news is it's out there. We know that there's a sustainability challenge for AI. I think what's really positive is that you do see tech firms, Samsung is one example, that are actively and independent of any government influence are saying this is how we should tackle it. We're going to experiment with sewage water, purified sewage water, as a way to reduce regular water consumption. I believe Microsoft also has figured out a way to completely eradicate water from their cooling process, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it's encouraging and that tech leaders, tech firms are taking that initiative in a world where nobody is telling them what to do. There's no government or set of governments that can enforce it. I think it's also encouraging that tech firms have taken the lead on AI upskilling efforts in a lot of countries. Google and a few other companies have gone to South Asia, they've gone to Southeast Asia, and again, on their own accord have said, we commit to upskilling 2 million people in the next 2 years, for instance in India. And I think again, independent of government influence, you do see these tech companies, maybe they're concerned about PR as well, how they look, but it's still for the greater good. And I think that's encouraging.
Do you worry at all about the consolidation of these tech companies, like having too much influence?
Yes, I think that's an ongoing discussion that we have in our work. And as I said earlier, I think on some level these AI firms or big tech firms with AI divisions are already kind of their own countries. They're on their way to becoming sort of the world's first non-state superpowers. That's something I talk about in my upcoming book, Global Spring. So I don't know how we tackle that, if I'm being brutally honest. I think that's just something we have to accept. I think what's important is to continue the dialogue with these tech leaders. If they are willing to engage, which they seem to be, they are engaged with the public, I think there's more scope to talk to them about what can we do. And I have to say, in some of the events I've gone to, UN General Assembly, for instance, and the Summit of the Future last year at the UN, it was really a lot of tech leaders. They were part of the discussion. So I think that's positive.
I agree too, and I think one thing that's been really great to see is a lot of outreach from the academic community to work with the tech companies too. There is a good level of concern, and I don't think that necessarily gets that much attention in the public very much, but it's something I've definitely seen in just having people on, talking to them about it. I know you've been super gracious with your time. I heard about this evolution project you're working on, and I kind of wanted a comic that you're putting out there. I kind of wanted to, without giving too much away, hear a little bit more about that if you're open to sharing.
So I have a portfolio career in global risk and future trends. So although I have a PhD, I'm not a traditional academic, but I always wanted to be a cartoonist. So actually 10 years ago, I drew my first comic. It's called The Global Kid. It teaches kids in a fun way about the world. And I'm a global citizen, but with Pakistani roots. And I lived in 7 countries. So the first comic kind of tracks this kid traveling around the world, and it talks about what the challenges are in a fun way. And it was kind of loosely based on my life. And then during the pandemic, like everyone else, I was rethinking my life, and I thought, how can we take the global kid to the next level? And I connected with 2 startups, Musemio and AR Market, based in London and in Rome. And we created the world's first VR, AR political comic book based on my original comic. And you read the physical comic, and then through the app, you can see the characters come alive, including Lucky, who is my dog. It's his birthday today, it's also my birthday, so happy birthday to Lucky. And he's a rescue. And anyway, so I guess I have that creative side, which I've been very excited to sort of develop and now take VR, AR elements into it. And this year I'm pursuing a comic book for grown-ups, and that is evolution, as you said. Over the years, I've seen how, sadly, global extremism has evolved. They're different strains around the world, and the goal is to kind of show how it has evolved, and then say these are the next types of forms of extremism or terrorism. So I won't give it away, but that's kind of the idea. Thanks.
Sounds great. We'll have to put that in the show notes to check it out. For people that want to follow your work, where would you recommend that they go check you out?
Yeah, please find me on LinkedIn, and I do post a lot on Instagram. It's the_global_kid. I created it originally for the comic. I'd love to stay engaged. Please reach out if you have any follow-up questions. And yes, my book is coming out. Global. It talks a lot about AI and what's next.
Thank you so much, Maha, for coming on today.